By this point, I know that Laowa creates some excellent lenses. They rarely disappoint, so I'm expecting good things from this 90mm macro. Now, the official title of this is the FF2 90mm F2.8 CA Dreamer Macro 2X. And I'm not even going to try to dissect that, but it is a full frame macro that's manual focus and magnifies up to 2:1. So let's check it out. It comes well packaged in a white box. Inside there is a warranty card and user manual, some silica gel, a plastic deep lens hood, and the lens itself with some plastic lens caps on the rear and the front. The build is excellent. It's all metal and glass, coming in at 570 grams. It feels solid, premium, well made. Starting at the rear, there is a metal mount, no electronic connections though, and no gasket here for weather sealing either. The aperture ring is up next. It's smooth, well damped, with ever so slight clicks. I like it a whole lot. The main body of this lens is also the focus ring. There is a large focal distance scale here, and the rotation is smooth with good resistance as it moves the elements inside closer and further from your subject. This is also where you can see the magnification that goes from 0.1:1 to 2:1. At the top there is a nice blue ring accent around the lens, a Laowa logo, and the lens specs. Around the front there is nothing but a nice sized front lens element. No writing here, it's nice and clean. Inside there appear to be 13 elements with several ED glass elements and several ultra high refraction glass elements as well. Mounted on my A7C, it's a nicely sized lens. It's not exactly small, but for a 90mm macro, it's smaller than other lenses out there. It makes for a good combo though, and admittedly, you'll probably be using this lens almost exclusively on a tripod. So macro lenses are pretty fun to shoot with unless you're trying to chase around an insect that's moving way too quickly. But in the promo for this lens, Laowa did a lot with strawberries and other various blueberries and fruit, and I felt inspired by that video. So here's some macro shots of some fruit and maybe some other random stuff that I threw in. All of this straight out of my Sony A7C with this lens attached to it. And optically, there's not much to talk about here. The lens is impressively sharp, and this is something that I found to be true about almost every single macro lens. I should say again, almost every macro lens, because it's hard to make a macro lens that isn't sharp. But this one is very, very good. It's sharp in the center of the frame, it's sharp in the corners, the colors are excellent, and the detail that you get so close to your subject is mind-boggling. Bokeh is nice and smooth and blurry. Distortion is also well controlled. I didn't notice much in the form of chromatic aberration. No vignetting to worry about. Again, it's a stellar performing macro. Its biggest selling point, of course, is that 2x macro capability. Now, I've tested a lot of 1:1 macro lenses, but this 2:1 is in a class of its own because it brings you that much closer to your subject. Now, as far as negatives, there are two silly ones that I will mention. First, focus breathing is insane, as you can imagine, with that front element moving forward and back through almost the full length of the lens barrel. The effect is truly fascinating. If you are using this lens for video, just keep it simple and don't zoom in or don't focus. The second thing is the flare performance is really not ideal. You get a lot of ghosting and busyness, so if you are using this as a backlit portrait lens for some reason, expect some of those issues. Even when you factor in price, which is about $500 USD, this is a very competitively priced macro lens. And yes, it doesn't have autofocus. This is manual focus, but I found that in using most of Sony's macro lenses that do have autofocus, it's really a challenge. And I would say after about a couple minutes, I usually turn autofocus off and try to manually focus everything anyway. But if you need autofocus, this is obviously not the macro lens for you. And optically, I don't think that this Laowa is any worse than the Sony from what I remember. I would say they are neck and neck. That is very sharp and excellent. The thing with the Sony though is that it is a max 1:1 macro, and the other competitor, which is the Sigma 105 macro, it's also a 1:1 maximum macro. So that means this Laowa, which is a 2:1, brings you much, much closer to everything, and that makes this this lens even more of an incredible value. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this lens and what your favorite macro lens is for APS-C or for full frame. If you guys want to read more about this one, if you want to check out specs and pricing, then I'll leave a link down in the description, so definitely check that out. And stay tuned for more. Thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.